Hello! In today's video, I'm going to be putting Lightroom's lens blur feature through its paces. It's supposed to be able to add blur and bokeh to our images. Now, if you're someone that predominantly uses a lens with a narrow aperture or a camera body with a crop sensor like me, then potentially this could be of use to you if you're looking to add some subject separation. Let's see how it does. So here we are in Lightroom, and I have picked out 4 different photos, all of which are edited, to test out the lens blur feature. And what I've tried to do is pick 4 photos that I think are gonna get harder and harder for this feature to work with. So we'll start with this beautiful peregrine falcon. To be honest, it's already got a very blurred out background, but let's just test and see. So to find this, we're in the develop module, and you scroll all the way down to this early access lens blur tab. Now to begin with, you click apply. So I'll do a before and after. Before, after. Probably see better in this. So before, after. So it's added in some blur. The background I'm less bothered about because we can add blur into that. It's just how it masks, and to be honest, with these default settings, it has done very, very well. Before, after. Is touching the bird a little bit there, if you can see on the beak. Before, after, although people probably wouldn't notice that. So you do have some sliders here. First one is the blur amount, so of course that just increases the blur. Hopefully you can see the difference there, it'll be even more telling. Before and after. The other thing you can change is the effect of the bokeh, but for these purposes, I'm not going to touch this. This is where it gets interesting. So Lightroom will have done an approximation of what it sees as the focal range. So what does that mean? Basically, as I move this slider, you should see, as this comes up, all of the blur's disappeared from the background here. And as I move this back down, things that are further away, i.e. the background, become more and more blurred. And if I keep moving this all the way down, you should see it started to affect the bird. So I'll move this back up. Does mean you've got quite a lot of wiggle room. Oh, it's struggling. One thing to note is this is very processor heavy. My computer is pretty quick, and it does struggle a little bit with this. So that probably looks about right. The other thing you can do is paint in or brush in focus and blur. So I'm just going to show you how the focus and blur brushes work here. If I move this back down so that some of this will be blurred, hopefully. Right, here we go. So I'll move this back down just for the purposes of looking at how this works. So we'll click on focus, and then I will brush in the areas where I'm saying it should focus on. And lo and behold, I have no idea what it's done there. So not foolproof. The theory is, if there are little bits that are out of focus, you can tell Lightroom to come in and focus on these. But evidently, that's not worked. So if we just go back to the default settings, wait for it to do its magic, and there we go. I have to say, with this, it has worked very well. I do think it looks fake, so I mean that is on 100, so I would probably dumb it down to about 40, but it's all fairly intuitive if you keep it simple. Personally, I wouldn't touch this photo with the lens blur anyway. This is just for the purposes of you being able to see what's possible. Right, thank you Lightroom. On to the next test. So, another stunning creature, this shorted owl. I picked this because we've got some differing parts in the background, and I would like to see if it manages to do anything with this area that's below the shorted owl, because there's maybe a little bit down here that is in focus, but the rest is out of the focal plane. So the same again, we'll press apply on here, see what it wants to do. There we go. For some context, that probably took about 8 seconds. So before, after, let's really push the blur up just so we can see. So zoomed in a little bit here. This is after, this is before. You can see it's really done well. And it's not touched the bird whatsoever. Maybe a tad on this side. Let's have a look. Yes, okay, so it really has touched the bird. So let's see if this works. So, sorry, I probably lost you a little bit there. It's taken me a while. What I was using is, if you click this visualize depth button, you get almost like a heat map of what is and isn't within this focal range that you've that you can move this slider here. I've just probably got the best results from messing around with this, seeing if I can get all of this bird to stay in focus whilst blowing out the rest. I can't. Whilst it could look quite good here, it just ends up looking a little bit artifacty, a little bit fake around. You see there's some strange blurring going on here. So for me, it's not something I would use for this photo. But good effort, Lightroom. Right, onto this majestic looking stag. Again, I think this is going to be bloody hard for it. What have we got? All of this background, very different background colours, going from dark to light. We've also potentially going to have an issue with these antlers. Some of these antlers are very similar in colour to the background. And then in the front, in the foreground, we've got all of this. Let's see. So once again, clicking apply. Let's take a closer look. So the background from here, it looks pretty good. Pleasing blur in the background. Let's have a look how it's dealt with these antlers. Not bad. Not bad at all. Okay. So this area will go from a before and after. So this is it currently, and then before. Okay. I take it back. It possibly is quite bad. How about in the front? Okay, well, it's just not really touched these, so that all looks good. With the fur detail here, okay, this probably should be, let's have a look. Yeah, so it's decided to blur this for some reason. I thought it was going to be tough. Let me see what I can do with a bit of tweaking, and I'll probably get back to you in about a minute or so. So, I've probably just spent about 4 or 5 minutes tweaking all of this, and I just couldn't get it to work properly. The main issue was that every time I would try and bring the focus plane to make sure that none of these antlers were getting artificially blurred, as soon as I managed to make that happen, there was absolutely no effect to the background. So once again, I wouldn't use this with this photo. Let's try one final photo, although I'm pretty sure my mind is already made up with this feature. So one last time, clicking apply. What do I think could be the problems here? Exactly what was just been showcased there. We've got these bits that are supposed to be out of focus, but I think the main thing is it just ends up looking way too fake. Marmot looks good. Before, after. It's just all a bit of a mess as to what it's deciding to blur and what it's not deciding to blur. So we'll go for a before and after here. This is before. I've just spotted another big flaw. After. So if we look here, these are supposed to be flies. And they've completely disappeared. As of the whiskers, I've just noticed. There we go, completely gone. I can try and reduce the blur, see if that works. Oh, it's working a bit, but if we keep reducing, there just won't be any effect, which renders this all kind of pointless to me. It's fair to say this is still the early access feature, so it's essentially a beta run for the lens blur, part of Lightroom. In its current state, I haven't been using it, and off the back of this, I won't be using it. It renders things a bit too artificial looking. I think if you've got certain parts of noise on your subject, that doesn't end up being replicated in the rest of the photo, and it just looks plasticky. I think it takes up too much processing power for what it ends up giving you. It's too much of a faff, in my view, and it takes too long for what you can probably do with just a few simple masks and just reducing the texture slightly, reducing the clarity slightly. You don't want to overdo things like this. It's the sort of thing that I can imagine people just pressing apply and then leaving it, and then it's just blatantly obvious that there's been a big change to the photo and something just doesn't look right. So for now, I'm going to give Lightroom its due. For now, in its early access form, it's a no from me. I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. If you have, then drop me a like and a subscription would be lovely. And I always respond to the comments, so please drop me a comment. It's always nice to hear from you. But for now, I'll say thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.